player can improve his skills, make friends, learn how to be part of a team, but a lot of times it's not actually a beneficial experience for a number of reasons. I think one of the more prevalent problems these days is parents getting out of control in a lot of instances. Parents will expect too much from their children. They'll complain they won't be able. They just don't appreciate. They just don't appreciate the moment. They expect all of their kids to go pro in something. Parents are getting too caught up in wins and losses rather than just appreciating the experience for the child. I think one way to solve something like this, have more parents volunteer, create better avenues where parents can volunteer to be assistants or even head coaches, because the best way for parents to learn what that particular sport is all about is for them to be involved in it. It's one thing for a parent to just drop off a child and then once practice is over come back, which I think it's something along the lines of 75% of parents do just that, where they don't have any idea what's going on at the practice. It's one thing for that to happen, but it's a completely another for parents to actually be involved, to be there, even if it's just keeping score, keeping a book, keeping statistics, something along those lines. Just being there and understanding the process of what's going on a daily basis in that respective sport. Parents, kind of expanding on parents' expectations. So many are convinced that their kid's going to be a Division I athlete, get a full scholarship, play on ESPN, go to New York City Radio Music Hall and get drafted #1 overall. It's just completely unrealistic. If you just going by statistics, it's not something that's realistic to consider. So rather than having that attitude as a parent, you need to appreciate your child playing whatever sport, whatever game it may be, and appreciate it for the life lessons being learned, rather than what kind of future can be made from this sport. And I think that parents are trying to live vicariously through their children, and I think it's a growing trend, and I think it's disturbing in a lot of ways, and I think it's one that I think parents need to be educated more. You see a lot of times with the parents who, I think equally in both parents who played sports when they were growing up and parents who didn't play sports. They watch ESPN and get an idea of what they want their child to be, and it puts a lot of unnecessary pressure, a lot of mental strain on the child playing the game, and he or she can't appreciate their own moment because their parent is putting a lot of pressure on them, and it's something that's totally unrealistic and unfounded. So I think that's a big problem, and I think you solve that with some education for parents. I think specialization early on in a child's playing career I think it's detrimental to their overall experience, and I think strictly athletically speaking, I think it puts them at a disadvantage. Oftentimes nowadays, kids don't get an off season because it's from a particular sport. Baseball, it's year round now. Once you're done playing outside in spring and fall and winter rolls around, you're going inside and you're doing workouts a few times a week. Basketball has the winter and summer circuits. The specialization early on is I don't think it has the effect many want it to. I think athletically speaking, if you play more than one sport, your body moves around in ways that one sport doesn't allow you to. If you play football and baseball, you're doing things in football that you wouldn't do in baseball, and vice versa. Tennis and basketball, same thing. You're strengthening your whole body. I think it creates a healthier athlete, honestly, because if you're stuck doing one consistent movement for one sport all the time, once you deviate from that, it creates a higher risk of injury. So I think specialization early on, anyways. Once you get to college, you're kind of say you become a college athlete, that's a different story. But early on, teenagers, things along those lines, they should not only athletically speaking, like I mentioned, but I think socially should try a whole bunch of different sports. Who knows? Someone may want you to specialize in basketball, but you branch out and try other sports, you might find something else that you want to do entirely. So I think there are a few different reasons why specialization early on may not be the great idea that many think it to be. I think the two sort of closing issues that are semi-related are poor coaching and safety. Poor coaching, I just mean in terms of a lot of youth sports are deviating from teaching the fundamentals and more focused on winning at all costs. And I think that's where safety comes into play, because coaches are willing to do so much at a young age with growing athletes to try and win that their safety is compromised. Just kind of speaking from experience, baseball-wise, you get a young kid who's maybe your best pitcher, and a coach may not have the best understanding on what kind of physical strain pitching is on a body, may not fully understand his athlete's health, and just throws him in important games that are back to back to back, and before you know it, the kid has substantial arm damage, ending in a lot of different ways, and pressing certain athletes too hard just for the sake of winning, when really if they were taught the fundamentals and less focus was placed on winning, I think you keep everyone safer, you create a better atmosphere, and I think ultimately you'll win more. And it's kind of a funny relationship. If you focus less on winning and more on the fundamentals, you'll create a better team, which will ultimately win more.
Hazing is a very important issue in all levels of sports. It affects people, very negatively, psychologically, physically. It starts out as fun and games for a lot of people, and then a lot of the times it goes too far. Injuries are a huge issue in youth sports. Playing sports, it's obviously fun, but it's a physical activity. There's risk involved. You can be playing with proper technique, but say, for example, if the field conditions aren't great, you can twist a knee, you could blow out a knee easily. That could keep a kid out, can make him think twice of playing athletic sports after that. Another serious injury that occurs in sports, especially contact sports, is concussions. There's a lot of research coming out now to, the negative effects that happen later on in life. For example, the NFL is going at huge lengths to prevent these. They're changing the rules. They're also committing $25 million over the next 3 years on promoting safety in youth football. Another big issue in youth sports is parents putting pressure on kids. A lot of the time, parents like to live vicariously through their children, putting them in sports that the kid, doesn't want anything to do with, really. The kid's not happy, but the parents just keep pushing them through it. Parents put a lot of pressure on their kids because they think they're going to be the next best thing. They're trying to get that college scholarship down the road. They're playing in 3 different leagues at one time, regardless of what the sport is. Kids can get worn out, mentally, and it goes back to what I alluded to before. If the kid doesn't want to do it, it's not happy, he's not happy, he or she isn't happy. It's just a negative. The over-involved parents, a lot of time, especially in hockey, they're notorious for having, fights between the parents. Parents can get in disagreements with officials. They start screaming at the officials. They'll wait for them after the game. It kind of, puts too much at stake. And it,
You have an improper matching of opponents in terms of speaking in skill levels. Some teams are just way better than others and should be playing lower. Drug testing as a whole, I think, is extremely important, but sometimes there are questions of, does it violate a student athlete's privacy? I think in some cases when it's done poorly, that becomes a real issue, a real question. But I believe it's important, and I believe it's necessary because it levels out the playing field. And in the cases of narcotics, things along those lines, I think it can help keep student athletes safe as a whole. I think athlete safety remains a huge issue. I think coaches are not adequately educated on how to take care of their athletes. I think there are many leagues across all the sports that have improper equipment or equipment that's being improperly used that can't keep athletes safe. I don't think enough is made about athlete nutrition. At different levels, you have a lot of discussion about training, different training techniques, but very few athletes, and speaking from personal experience, are really given enough information about what their diet should be like to maintain their not only the physical form, but just overall mental well-being, nutritionally speaking. Too often in youth sports, you have coaches playing favorites. Whether it's the most skilled player or it's a player whose parents are paying the most money. You have coaches who, whether it's in their own choices or kind of against their will, coaches can pick favorites, and they may not be putting the best team on the field, and they may be handicapping other athletes who may be more deserving to get certain playing time or specific repetitions in practice. So I think coaches playing favorites is something that's definitely more prevalent at the youth sports level. Collegiately speaking, I don't think there's much that's a big deal. With youth sports, I think it's something that is extremely prevalent. I think today a lot of youth athletes have the
You talk about like pressure from their peers and their parents and like their school, stuff like that.
I think youth athletes today have a lot more to deal with, just speaking specifically about social media, than athletes in the past. Not even just as a youth athlete, but as someone growing up today, everything you do can be recorded, can be posted, and is ultimately found on the internet. So that's extremely tough. It's an extremely tough thing to be aware of as a kid growing up when you're inevitably going to make stupid decisions. You have a lot of pressure from other athletes, from your peers, from outside individuals. If you are an extremely skilled youth athlete, odds are somebody from another town, another county, things along those lines, is going to know who you are and has the ability to find out your social media account.